Hey everybody, welcome to exploration 1 of Unit 2, Lesson 2, so 2.2.1. And today we're going to talk about the properties of carbon. So carbon is going to be the basic element found in all of our organic molecules. So all of you guys have heard of organic foods and organic things and things that we know that happen naturally, and carbon is the base of all that. So organic chemistry refers to chemistry of carbon-based molecules. And in this unit 2, lesson 2, we're going to talk about those organic molecules and what we call macromolecules. So macromolecules are going to be those things found on the back of food labels. Things like fats that we call lipids, carbohydrates, proteins. And then the third one that we don't necessarily find on the back of the label are nucleic acids. And nucleic acids is how we're going to talk about, or how we make DNA and RNA and things like that we pass on that create heredity. And those are the things that we're going to talk about in the future of our year. So first thing we want to do is talk about the structure of these organic based compound or carbon-based molecules. So in organic molecules, carbon is the most commonly bonded to the elements of hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. And as you'll find, these are the elements that are, along with carbon, are found the most abundant on our planet. So as we scroll down, here's an example of what we call a straight chain. Okay, a straight chain. This is actually a fat, a lipid, an oil, right? And what's going to happen is we're going to find all of these carbons linked up in a chain, and then we're going to have these hydrogens linked around the outside. So this is an example of a fat. Another example of how carbon might bond is what we call a branch chain. So here we have a chain, right? But then it's going to have a branch on it. And that branch is going to have another carbon that bonds to this one. And then it's going to have kind of like a branch on a tree. So here's the trunk, and then here's a branch coming off. We call this a branch chain. And then the other one is we're going to have a ring. And this is what we're going to find in a lot of our sugars that we'll talk about in the future, is a ring molecule. And you'll see that down here below. So as you can see, in this molecule, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbons. And we'll talk about this later, right? This is glucose. And so glucose's chemical formula is C6H12O6. And what that means is there are 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens in here, and 6 oxygens, C6H12O6. And so we look at the chemical formula, just like of water, H2O, would have 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. That's its chemical formula. So as we scroll down here, we're going to talk about, here would be an example of carbon with a double bond, covalent bond with oxygen, and carbon with a double bond of oxygen over here. So we know that carbon is going to make 4 bonds for every 1 carbon. Here's an example where it's going to make 2 with this oxygen and 2 with this oxygen. Here's an example where carbon is actually going to make 3 bonds between these 2 carbons. And then that means it has 1 left, it bonds with hydrogen over here and bonds with hydrogen over here. Okay? So as we come down here, now we're going to talk about monomers and polymers. And what all that means is that these molecules, like we've talked about, lipids and carbohydrates and proteins, are all what we call polymers. And I want you to think about polymers as a long chain. And those long chains are going to be made up of monomers. So for example, like a pearl necklace is a chain of pearls. And that would be the polymer. And the monomer would be the individual pearl or bead that you use to make that necklace. So the definition of a polymer, if you click on the little 3 dots, right, is a large carbon-based molecule formed by monomers. So what are some of those monomers? That's what we'll talk about with each individual one. So a hydrocarbon, right? A hydrocarbon is an organic compound composed of only carbon and hydrogen. So hydrocarbons. So what it is, it's a large molecule, very large molecule that is only made of those 2 elements. And we have they're covalently bonded. And in those covalent bonds, it's going to be a great source of energy. And what we're going to find out, like here's an example of cellulose. Cellulose is found in plants. But what cellulose is it's a polymer. It's a long chain. So this whole thing would be cellulose. We find a lot of it in celery and plants that are very stringy, right? But what it is the monomer is glucose. So you all have heard of glucose. It's just simple sugar, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to be glucose, 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 glucose. And we link all of these glucose molecules together and we put them in a certain structure, we're going to create cellulose. Okay, so we scroll down, it says making of polymers. So here's exactly what happens. Glucose is a monomer. Okay, fructose is also a monomer, both of sugars. Okay, what you're going to find too is anytime a word ends in OSE, that means sugar, right? Glucose, fructose. When these two are bonded together, we're going to take out this hydrogen and we're going to take out this OH, which is called a hydroxide. When we take these out, they're going to form water, but then these two are going to bond together right here. So this carbon and this oxygen and this carbon are going to make a bond, right? It's this carbon, this oxygen, and this carbon. They make a bond right here. And when they do that, they covalently bond. When we get one glucose and one fructose, they are going to make sucrose. So sucrose is what we call a disaccharide. Di means two. So disaccharide means sugar. These are all things we're going to talk about in the future. There's two of them. So they bond together and they're going to start to make a polymer, which is a chain. Okay, and as we scroll down, now the last thing we want to talk about is what is an isomer? So an isomer is a molecule that share the same chemical formula but differ in the placement, structure of their atoms or the bonds. So what it means is that they have the exact same amount and number of atoms, but they bond differently. And because of that, they are different molecules. So for example, glucose is C6H12O6, and here's how they bond. Okay, you're going to see that this little molecule is attached to this carbon. But if you'll notice over here in fructose, this same one is bonded to this carbon. This is also a 5-carbon unit, and this is going to be a 6-carbon ring. See, so the ring is made up right here of these carbons. This one is going to be more of a pentagon shape. And because of that shape, it changes the sugar and how they bond together. Okay, you've got it different over here, right? So they're bonded differently. However, if you count up the number of atoms here, there's going to be 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens. Same with over here. You can count them up. Okay, that's called an isomer. An isomer is when they are the same. Okay, so that concludes 2.2.1. We'll be moving on to these macromolecules. How do we make carbohydrates and lipids and nucleic acids and proteins? That's what we're going to be spending the next couple weeks doing. So hope you made it through that and can't wait to see you guys in class.